Today I'm making for you a comfort food heavy hitter, slow roasted pot roast. Enjoy! Welcome everybody to Cindy Certified Recipes. It's that time of year when the temps are dropping, the leaves are falling, I'm wearing flannel, that we start thinking about all those delicious homemade comfort foods. And one of those at the top of the list is pot roast. And today we're going to transform this humble piece of chuck roast into something that any taste bud would be envious of. But before we get to that, if you haven't already, I would sure appreciate you becoming one of my great subscribers and hitting that subscribe button and also that notification bell so you get first dibs on all my upcoming videos. Now let's start this transformation. Hi everybody, I'm back and we're going to start transforming this beautiful piece of meat into a delectable pot roast. And to start that, I have a little bit of a spice rub here that I like to use. And we're going to start off with 3 teaspoons of black pepper, 3 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of paprika. And that would be the sweet paprika. You don't want smoked paprika. And we're just going to give that a little bit of a stir. That's pretty good and stirred up. And we're going to bring over our nice roast. And this has been sitting at room temperature, to get to room temperature for about 30 to 45 minutes out of the fridge. And before we're going to put all these spices on there, got to pat it dry, and this one's sure a great sear when we get it over to the stove. So you just want to get some paper towels and press on them. This one wasn't too moist, so that's good. Give them a good squeeze all over. Like a roast massage. All right, I think that's good and dry. And now we're just going to start sprinkling our spice rub all over them. I like to use my hands to get it all worked into the grain. Do all the sides, and then I'll do the edges too. You know, I was getting this pot roast and it took me 5 stores to find this guy. It's like, wow, what is going on with that? But I normally like a bigger one than this, but this was as good as I was going to do. And so I would normally use up all this spice on a pot roast. If you don't either, as in use up all your spice, you can easily just put that in a little jar or a little Ziploc and put it in your cupboard. It's great on anything. You can put it on pork, chicken, even fish. So if you have some left over, just store it away and use it on something else. So we got him all spiced up. And I'm going to set that aside. It's actually good to let it sit a little while, let all the spices get in there. Wipe off my hands because my hands are just as spiced as that roast. And I like to add bacon to my pot roast, and I also like to use the grease to start sauteing all the veggies. And so I have a little bacon grease left over. I made some BLTs yesterday, so I have some bacon grease from that, but I still want the bacon itself in the pot roast. So I'm just gonna cut some of this up here into tiny pieces, at least as tiny as I can, and we'll be frying those up in the Dutch oven when we get over to the stove. I've mentioned this in a previous video, that if your bacon is nice and cold or even frozen, it cuts easier. Mine's been sitting here while I did other things, so it's being a little harder than it should, but we'll get there. There we go. Alrighty. So now that is going to go over to the stove when we get there. And so what I like to do is not put my big veggies in until halfway through the cooking process. And so what I like to do is something similar to what I did in my beef rib video, which is a short, we didn't do a long, is I like to dice up, this is about 2 cups of carrots, really small. So this is about 5 carrots, and they weren't real big carrots. And I diced it as small as I could, and I cut them in matchsticks, and then just kind of chop, 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 chop. And also, this is 1 large onion that I put in my, if you've seen some of my previous videos, I have like this little salsa maker thing that I love to, when I have to cut onions real small, that's what I use. And so that way, when I make the sauce, the first part of the cooking and the sauteing, these will kind of disappear into the sauce. And then halfway through the cooking, I have some larger veggies here that I will put in halfway through the process, some beautiful autumn colored carrots here that I got at Trader Joe's, and the potatoes that I like quite large, and we'll put those in after the second half of the cooking, or before the second half of the cooking. And another thing I like to put in is garlic. And these weren't the biggest cloves on the planet, and I have a new little tool, and it's actually really nifty when you want minced garlic. And so we'll just spread those out here, and you just take a clove and you put it down under there, and you just kind of walk it back and forth. Look at that. Isn't that cool? And it leaves like nothing there. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so we'll just scrape that into a little bowl and do a few more cloves here. Nifty, right? I thought it was pretty cool. So there is our minced garlic. And so now we're going to take all this goodness and the roast over to the stove and start searing it and getting it ready for the oven. All right, you guys, I got my big old Whopper Dutch oven going here, and it's getting all nice and hot there on medium to about medium high with these. You gotta be careful not to heat them too high. And we got our seasoned meat here, all ready to go in that pot. So I like to fiddle with food, and I have to try very hard not to touch food when it just needs to sit and sear. So we're gonna let that sit there about 5 minutes, and then we'll check on that sear. All right, that's 5 minutes on that side, and we're gonna give it a check. That's looking beautiful. And we'll mash that down onto the pot, get it all so it's touching the bottom. There we go, and we'll let that go another 5 minutes. All right, and that's the other 5 minutes on that side. And then this part's a little awkward, is trying to get the sides. Remember my pork chop video? That's what I did on the sides, is trying to get them with a little heat love too. But this one's a little harder to do. Okay, we got a little bit going on there. So we're gonna go ahead and take him out and set on a plate. He's gonna hang out there while we start our other things. And so next is getting our bacon all nice and brown and giving off its wonderful grease, fat. I'll turn that heat down just a little bit because I want that to cook kind of slow. And if that doesn't give off the amount of fat that I want, I have some bacon grease here from yesterday that I will add to that. So that's going to cook there a few minutes. Our bacon is getting there and it's adding to that beautiful fond. All those bits in the bottom, fond. That is going to add to the taste and color of our sauce. But I want these a little crispier than that, so it's going to keep cooking away there. All right, bacon's looking good. It's ready to come out. So I'm just gonna pile that up there and try to reserve as much of that fat as possible. We'll be adding all that bacon back in later. You don't have to get every bit. There we go. Now we are going to start adding in the onions and the carrots. And I think I'm going to add in a little bit of that bacon grease I told you about. It's probably about a tablespoon. We'll see how that goes. I might add a little more. In fact, I will add more. I'm looking at the bottom there. There we go. Flavor and flavor, that's what that does. Turn up that heat just a little bit, and these are gonna saute until they are soft and translucent. At that point, I'll be adding the garlic. All right, those are looking nice and soft. I'm using my wooden spoon here, which I always use on my good pots, and I'm scraping up all that fond, that brown bits on the bottom. And that is ready to add in our garlic. And that's only going to cook 1 or 2 minutes. You don't want to brown garlic too much when you're sauteing because it'll make things bitter. So we'll just let that hang out there for a minute or two. I'm going to give that a stir. I can smell that garlic, and that's looking wonderful. And so now we're going to add in 1 small can of tomato paste. All right, and then we're going to add in, believe it or not, about 2 tablespoons of ketchup. And that adds just a little bit of, since there's vinegar in ketchup, you've seen me use that before, just gives it that extra little interesting flavor that I think goes very well. We're going to give that a stir. In goes about a tablespoon of beef base or beef bouillon. And then we're going to add our flour. You're making the sauce before the beef goes into it. I'll let that hang out just a minute or less, and so that you cook out that flour taste. All right, this is the time I like to start deglazing it with good Cabernet. I like to use Cabernet Sauvignon. That's about 1.5 to 2 cups. I might add a little bit more once I start blending this all together. You can already see the beautiful color forming here. You'll let that bubble just, again, like less than a minute. All right, that's looking nice and steamy. And now we're going to add in 32 ounces of beef broth or beef stock, either one. And 3 dashes of Worcestershire sauce. 1, 2, 3. I want that to come to a nice high simmer, I'm going to call it. And see how that thickens up. And I might add more liquid. So let's just get that stirred and bubbling. We're starting to get some bubbles here, but you need to keep stirring it from time to time because it'll start wanting to form another layer on the bottom of the pot. It's a little thicker and getting there, but still needs some time to simmer. Our sauce is looking all nice and bubbly. It's gotten a little thicker. And so at this point, I'm going to add in that bacon we cooked. And start adding in our herbs. I have this crazy rosemary bush outside, so I got all these weird branches here. But I think, you know, this one branch will suffice. So we'll put him in there. And some thyme. So we can put that in there. It's like a little mop. Stir all that around. Now our chunk of meat over there is going to be giving off juice, and so I want this a little bit on the thicker side. You're probably looking at that going, ooh, I would add a little more broth to that. But that beef is going to go in there and give off its juice, and then later, after an hour and a half, a bunch of veggies are going to go in there. They're going to give off their juice, so I don't want this to get too thin. So that's looking really good right there to me. And so I'm going to turn that heat down a little bit, and we are going to add our Mr. Chuck back into there. Mr. Battleship. Just like that. Settle them down in there. Pour any juice off from your plate. And you don't want to adjust any seasoning either till way down the road, because remember how we put all that seasoning on the chuck roast. There we go. So I'm going to be putting the lid on this, and I have my oven preheated to 325, and that's going to go in the oven for about an hour and a half, and we're going to check on it. And at that point, I'll bring it back out here, and we're going to add our veggies so they don't get all mushy and cook for 3 hours like the roast needs to. This is after an hour and a half in the oven, and there's a little grease on there, but we're not going to worry about that right now. But this is the time when I like to add in all the vegetables so that they turn out nice and cooked but firm after this goes in the oven a little longer. So now is when I cut up the onions nice and thick versus before when they were really small and they just disappeared into the sauce. So we're just going to drop, this is one onion, we're just going to drop those wedges down in there. And you can see how big I cut everything, bigger than even beef stew, because it serves as a side when you pull the meat out. So you want them nice and chunky. That's celery. And some people actually like celery root instead of the celery itself because it maintains its structure more than the celery. And you can see how much I cut these potatoes. These are those little Yukon Golds, and then I basically peeled them and just cut them in half because there too I want them kind of chunky and not lost after they cook. I'll use a spoon here and a little bit and push everything down. And I got these carrots, and they're absolutely beautiful. You can see them, very autumnal. But I'm just going to put those in whole because I think they're going to be very pretty on the plate when this is all finished. I think that's enough. And we'll just kind of smush them down a little bit here along the sides of the roast. I The heat alone in this Dutch oven will cook them, even if they don't go all the way down into that sauce. They will definitely get cooked. Actually, that is good. And we're going to put the lid on, and that's going to go back in the oven for another hour and a half, 325. Hi, everybody. Our pot roast is finally out of the oven. It takes a long time to make these suckers, but they're worth every minute. And it smells so good. And I'm going to put some on the plate here and take the veggies out and show you what it's like. So let me start pulling that out. I might make a mess. Here's the meat. I'm going to get some of those veggies that we put in partway through the cooking. These carrots. See, what's nice is they're not mushy. So it kind of pays to put them in later and not at the very beginning. Can't forget the potatoes. Some celery. Sometime you guys try the celery root. You're going to be really surprised, and you'll get all the cashiers going, "What is that?" That always happens at soup time when you get all those turnips and rutabagas and things that the cashiers aren't used to, and they're like, "What is that?" All right. There's our pot roast, everybody. And so I'm gonna try some. Got my handy dandy fork and knife. Of course, it's just, I don't need the knife, but just trying to get a little piece. Look at that. Yummy. I didn't even get any gravy. I gotta get some gravy out of the pot. Because I'm a dipper, you guys. It's like at Thanksgiving or anytime I have gravy, I need a separate bowl to dip. It's so good. And by the way, I made a batch of my fluffy buns. Yummy, yummy. So that you can do this. Or, better yet, you can cut it apart like that. Take that meat and put it in there. Maybe get a little more meat and put it in there. Like that. Then take one side and dunk it. And then put it on there. You got yourself a little pot roast sandwich. It's so good. And I took a big bite. I want to keep eating it. I have over 100 comfort food recipes, and you guys have to check them out. They're so good, and you're going to love them. And I want to say, if you like this video, don't forget to share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that like button. And we'll see you next time on Cindy Certified Recipes. Don't forget to check out my delicious comfort food playlist. And remember, if it's time tested, top-notch ingredients, and the talk of the table, it's Cindy certified.